In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is your host, Grizzlies beat writer Drew Hill, joined as always by columnist Chris Herrington. Basketball has begun. We had a preseason game, Chris. It was a preseason game. It looked like a preseason basketball.
I gotta say, it was fun though. It was fun. We had a little bit of this with Summer League.
It was not all fun.
But no, my point, last season was such a disaster. It was fun to be watching a game that had interesting stuff in it, to be if you're on social media, to be interacting with other fans and seeing what fans are saying, and to get into the rhythm of enjoying basketball again. It's been too long since we've been able to enjoy basketball, professional basketball, basketball in the city of Memphis. And I'm looking forward to a season of enjoying basketball with my fellow basketball fans. It's great. I'm fired up.
You know, I am too. And I hope we have the opportunity to do that because unlike you, I don't want to jinx anything.
Right.
I just, it's just frustrating because it did from January on, it was a punt for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yes.
I guess to use the basketball analogy, they were running the shot clock out and taking the turnover.
We had TNT GG and we had the bug, we had some stuff, but it was not good games,
I like those guys and I like covering those guys, but it doesn't make up for meaningful basketball.
That's right.
And it did feel like there was some meaning in the game. So we'll talk a little bit about the game. We'll talk about a couple injury updates that we have. One that we got today at Grizzlies practice on Ja Morant. And then I'm going to quiz you. I've basically been trying to blindfold and cover Chris's ears for the last 2 days in order to get him to not look at the GM survey so I could quiz him on it.
Typically, Calkins would have beat you to that, and he hadn't done it. So, and I've not looked at it, so we're good.
I'm very glad he didn't. I thought about telling him yesterday that I called dibs on it,
right?
But
that would not.
I feel like that wouldn't have worked anyway. No. So yeah, well, I'm glad we're going to get the opportunity to do that. So we will do that. But let's start with this. Let's start with the preseason game. The Grizzlies get the win. The Mavericks didn't really play anybody. Jaren Jackson didn't play. Vince Williams, Gigi Jackson, none of them were really expected to play. They didn't play. Cam Spencer didn't play with an ankle. And the Grizzlies win. We got our first taste of the new offense, as I wrote just probably an hour and a half ago. It was kind of fun because you had all the Grizzlies fans signing up for the free trial on NBA League Pass in order to watch the Grizzlies trial run of this brand new offense that they have put in place. What were your takeaways? What stood out to you from the first preseason game?
We'll get into the Ja stuff in a minute. The biggest, most meaningful thing was the little injury scare Ja stuff, which doesn't not sound like a big deal at all. But from a team play standpoint, I need a lot more games under my belt for me to feel like I have much to say about. I'll try, but I feel like we need more on the offense for the reality of it to catch up with the rhetoric around it. I was struck by the pace. To me, the pace was the thing that jumped out, and they played very fast. You could see them really the effort to get the ball, off the glass and get it down the floor quickly. I think that led to some turnovers and led to some sloppiness. That's to be expected. It's the first preseason game. I also think there was such an emphasis in training camp on pace that they wanted to come out and play fast. And I think they will play fast this season, but I don't think on average they're going to play that fast. It's just a natural, you get into the flow of the season and things are going to settle down a little bit. But they played very fast. They got up a lot of threes. If that game had been their season averages last season, they would have been first in pace and first in 3-point attempts. I think they want to play fast and get up a lot of threes. So that is the thing to watch. I have some feelings about the way they're going to play fast and the kind of shots they're going to get. I think that bears watching. In terms of the half court stuff, which is real, that's really the impetus for the offensive change to be a better half court team. I think that's something we're just going to have to discover over time. It did look different, but I don't know if it felt radically different, and I don't know if the results were radically different. But it's been one preseason game.
I agree with everything you just said. But someone's got to write about it, and that's all they're talking about now.
Yeah.
So I did write about it today, and I did also include something that you had mentioned to me. The point about the pace was faster, obviously, than and then the other thing that I think is notable, and it's interesting to me because we keep hearing the same things about this offense over and over and over again. We keep hearing the collective basketball coach talk thrown out there by Taylor Jenkins and the 3 Ps, right? The 3 Ps, pace, possessions, and principles. And we're going to hear that all season long. I'm certain of it, and it's going to probably drive some people crazy.
So pace, check. Possessions, thumbs down on the possessions. On that with the turnovers. The principles, who knows?
Thumbs middle. You know, who has any idea?
Right.
But I found what Luke Kennard said kind of interesting. Well,
you have to tell me because the music was so loud in the gym. I was on the other side. I couldn't hear what Luke Kennard was saying.
I found some of it interesting because he came out and said, that we're going to play really fast and that's the whole goal. And I thought we played very fast, which kind of hit the marks and did kind of what we wanted to do in that way. And that's going to be really important to us. And then you also heard Taylor Jenkins say, we played really fast and speed is the name of the game. That was like the tagline from Taylor Jenkins. But Taylor also mentioned turnovers. And then when I asked Luke about it, I said, you've got these 3 Ps, really 2 Ps that apply directly to basketball. One that's more kind of however the coaches think the players are playing.
Right.
But 2 that apply directly to basketball. And to me, they kind of work in opposite of each other a little bit. Because if you play super fast, it is much harder to take care of the ball. And that's essentially what Luke Kennard said. Now, there are equalizers there. I understand that. But Luke Kennard said, look, we are going to be a team that turns the ball over this season because we're going to play so fast.
So, okay. I without getting too far off track, conceptually, I want to pick that apart a little bit because I'm not entirely sure that's true. I think on one hand, if you are you could operate in a quick tempo, whether it's transition or half court, and operating that quick tempo and trying to make quick decisions when you're not accustomed to it yet, I think that can lead to turnovers. But I don't think transition play itself inherently leads to turnovers. In fact, I would suspect it goes the other way because it's fewer passes. Fewer passes, fewer dribbles, I think will lead to fewer turnovers. If you're kicking the ball down the court and the first guy who catches it's taking a 3, you're probably not going to you're less likely to get a turnover in that possession than you get into a half court set with more passes and more whatever. So I'm not sure that increased pace is tied to turnovers. I think it may have been in that one game, but overall, I'm not so sure about that.
I do understand that, but I think that it's not just the pace of the game and how quickly you shoot over the course of a shot clock. I would say it's also just the aggressiveness.
No, that's what I meant about the tempo of your decision making.
Right.
I think they were getting the ball and throwing it down the floor sometimes before they had a good sense of what was going to happen when they did it. And I think that led to some of the turnovers.
And look, the Grizzlies had 23 turnovers against Dallas. They only had 23 or more turnovers. If you go back to their last winning season, 22-23, one time they had more turnovers than that during the regular season. They can't turn it all over that much and expect to win a lot of games.
It's a first preseason game.
It was the first preseason game. Exactly. And so they are going to get better as it relates to this too, because they're going to get adjusted to this. Like it's going to become, they're going to have a better feel for how this works. They're trying to run 5 guys all at the same time and make decisions based on what the defense is doing. And by the way, they didn't start installing this until the middle of the summer. So it's going to get better over the course of time. But I do think the more aggressive you play, the more likely it is that you could turn the ball over. And what I found interesting from Luke Kennard, was that he said, I said, if you're going to win a possessions game and you're going to turn the ball over, which he said we might turn the ball over a little bit more this year because we're playing a more aggressive style, are there ways you're going to have to make up for that? And he pointed to the two equalizers here. You got to take the ball away from the other team, and you got to offensive rebound.
Yeah.
Like, those two things are going to be pretty important. And he went as far as to say, like, yeah, today that's what we worked on. It was like crashing the glass, getting offensive rebounds. It's going to be a critical part to the game. Well, and they had 14. And again, one game, but 14, good start there, I would say.
Well, and in that game in particular, I mean, you are in terms of the idea of forcing turnovers, which the Grizzlies, I think, across generations have been good at forcing turnovers. Two of the guys who are most going to help you do that were not playing in that game, which is Jaren Jackson Jr. and Vince Williams Jr., right?
Definitely.
And so those are guys who are going to have a big impact on your turnover creation, and they're not in that game. You know, you did have Zach Edey and Brandon Clark, I think, help your offensive rebounding. I think Vince Williams also does that. No, it'll be an interesting thing to see the sort of how they balance those things. In terms of the flow of the offense in the half court, I think that's something they're still feeling through, and sort of we are too. I'm interested in what they do to generate. They're going to generate a lot of threes, but I'm interested in what they do to generate open shots in the lane and at the rim. And I mean, we saw some of that. We saw a couple of Zach Edey like catch and finish. We saw Brandon Clark really effective sort of in that. I mean, there are different ways to get there, and like pick and roll can get you there too. But if their movement stuff that they're going to do is going to find a way to consistently get, you know, a Brandon Clark, a Zach Edey, a Jaren Jackson, some like good shots in the lane, that's sort of what I want to see.
Yeah. To add to that, I think we saw a little bit of Desmond Bane getting open shots in the mid range after relocating from, you know, the extended elbow, coming into around the free throw line and getting open shots. He made a few of those. And it does look different. Like, they promised us that it would look different, and it does. It looks different just to watch it. As to how effective it will be, I think you're right. It's going to take some time to figure out.
Well, one of the things I'll be looking for, and I listened, which from your tip off, I listened to some podcast stuff that the lead assistant Tuomo Asalo, I say that correctly? Close.
Yes, Asalo. Yep.
That he had done, which you had sent me, and it's sort of interesting to listen to it because I mean, trying to separate the coach lingo from the reality is sort of funny to me because they've been talking about positionless basketball. And one of these pods you sent me, he literally says, I don't really believe positionless basketball is a real thing. I'm interested in, and he talked a little bit about this in one of these pods, but to me, the question of collective basketball, system basketball, and the question of things not being equal because your players are not equal, and getting the better players the ball in the better spots and being able to direct that. I'm going to be very interested to see as we go forward whether those two things can both happen at the same time. This sort of collective flowing basketball and making sure, like, you know, John Morant has the ball more than like Marcus Smart, and guys are getting the ball in the right spots, right?
I think that is a real question because, again, if you want to go back to the last time this team won 50 games, that was with Ja being highly ball-dominant point guard. And to me, possessions in which Ja Morant does not touch the ball is a flat-out wasted possession on offense. And so I would be shocked if...
And when Zach Edey is on the floor, and I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. To me, that's an interesting question when you consider the pace stuff. But, like, how many minutes can he play playing this style? It's not like Purdue where you're just walking up and down the floor. Like, when he is on the floor, how often is the ball touching his hand in the paint? Because I want the ball touching his hand in the paint a lot because you're going to generate a lot of efficient offense off that.
Especially if he's a passer, too, because you're going to generate a lot of double teams and you're going to create open looks for other players. What do you make of the three-point shooting? They shot a lot. Do you think that, I mean, again, one game, could this reflect that the three-point shooting, the three-point attempts, I guess, could go up?
They shot a lot, and they shot a decent, not a great percentage, but it was on the whole, it's like 36, 37% on like 41 attempts, I think. So that's a good three-point shooting night. I mean, they'd be happy to get that, I think. My thing with three-point shooting is that there's the idea that it's just inherently good, and that has become a truism in the past 10 years of NBA. Like, the more threes you shoot, the better you are. I'm hesitant to embrace that wholeheartedly. And I think, in fact, we talked about a little bit about this in a recent pod we did. I think the Grizzlies last season are a good counterexample. They took tons of threes and they were the worst offense in the league. And it's sort of a chicken or the egg thing. They took lots of threes because they couldn't create other stuff, right? You don't want to be taking threes because you can't do better. You want to get them in a more positive way. And I think it matters who's shooting them. And so, one of the things I noted, and again, it's one game, but to me, I apply it to the talent. I think playing fast with this roster is inherently going to be different than playing fast with the roster 3 years ago because of the talent. It is a less athletic roster. And so I think you're going to get more transition threes and fewer transition dunks is my guess, which is fine if you get good transition threes from good transition 3-point shooters. And so it matters whether that's becoming a quick trigger Luke Kennard shot or a quick trigger Marcus Smart shot, right? Not to pick on Marcus Smart again, but that does matter. And so, with all of this, there's a tension between what's effective and what I like to watch. And that the second part is entirely subjective. It may not apply to other people. Go back to alley-oops.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, back to alley-oops. But I think, a lot of 3-point shooting from good 3-point shooters will be effective. And I think that is what they want to do. But I don't think more 3-point shooting just by itself, disconnected from other things, is necessarily the answer.
Is there any, I don't want to give away your column and I don't necessarily want to ask you about what you're writing right now, but is there any character that we have talked to at training camp that has stood out, the interactions have been interesting? Because to me, I think I would probably go Ja. I would say the other noteworthy thing is that we've heard a lot about Jake LaRavia impressing at training camp.
Right.
Now, whether or not that plays out on the court, I think we'll see. But there were several players that went out of their way to talk about Jake LaRavia. And then with Ja, I just think it's more I asked Taylor Jenkins if the attitude of the team has changed, but his attitude seems to have somewhat, I guess not attitude, but mindset has maybe shifted a little bit off of the I'm going to prove everybody wrong to I just need to go out there and do my thing type of attitude. And I think that could be healthy for him in the long run. But to me, those are the only other two things that really stood out. But was there anything for you that?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more of a sort of a steelier mentality in terms of we're confident, but we're not going to pound our chest as much about it. And I think that's appropriate given the season they came off of, given where some of these players are in their career. I think that's good. In terms of the Jake thing, Marcus Smart sort of started at a media day when someone asked him, Vince Williams is injured and you can't play 48 minutes. So who else is going to take these defensive assignments? And Jake LaRavia might seem like an odd answer to some people. I think it was the right answer because he's not saying Jake LaRavia is going to be as good as, me or Vince Williams. He's saying it's these are the options. What you want Cam Spencer? You want Jalen Wells? You want Luke Kennard? What do you want? Right. I think it's accurate to say that Jake LaRavia has the size and aggressiveness to be a meaningful defensive player. He's all defensive team guy, but to be someone who actually can play both ends of the floor, I think is right. And in Nashville, when it came up again, Marcus Smart talked specifically, and I think maybe Luke Kennard did too. Those are the two guys that really mentioned Jake unprompted, right? And after they did, people started asking people about Jake. But they mentioned him unprompted. And they sort of talked about confidence, right? You have to have the confidence that you can be the guy out there taking this defensive assignment. You can be the guy out there taking these shots. And I think it's an important, there's an opportunity for Jake with Gigi and Vince out. I think it's important.
I think there would have been an opportunity for Jake, even if those guys.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because you're going to play. If you're the 11th man in a 10-man rotation, you're going to be playing all the time. We've seen this before with the team. But it is a little bit of a ceremonial preseason position. The young guy who people are talking about in training camp.
Yeah,
it was Zaire Williams a year ago, right?
It's always somebody. Exactly where you were going with that one.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I like everything we've seen from Jake LaRavia since he finally got in the rotation late last season.
Came in, made a 3 on an assist from Ja in the game on Monday night. Yeah, I think a lot of people have come around to Jake, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had a good season. One more thing on the Ja stuff too. I found you know, we've been doing this thing like where we talk about how, you know, maybe they're going to try to prove it on the court. The words that Taylor Jenkins has used all preseason is talk is cheap, right? And Ja has even embodied that. I will say there's an element to Ja, the a little bit defiant element, a little bit brash element that I think is appealing to a lot of basketball fans, myself included, that makes him an exciting player because he says it and then he goes and he backs it up on the court. Like, there is something that is cool about that. And you just don't want him to lose his entire edge.
I agree 100%. But, I agree completely with that.
We got that a little bit. I mean, he got asked about Team USA at training camp and was like clearly not happy with the question. I'm not sure that the reporter who asked him really knew that was a sore spot. And we got a little bit of that from Ja. And I think we don't want him to lose that entirely, because I think that's
Ja is better on the floor when he plays with a little bit of that chippiness, a little bit of that edge. Like, you don't have to have like off-court issues. You don't have to calm down your life off the court, which he has apparently done and needed to do. That doing that thing doesn't necessarily mean not playing with the edge and the chippiness on the court, right? Like, it's not a choice. You can have both. And I do think, and again, it's more important to me to do it to play with that energy than to convey that energy in an interview, right? I don't really care what Ja says about the Team USA stuff. But if you're upset by that, internalize it and bring it to the floor. I do want to see that. You know?
No, I think that's the most fun version of Ja.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the version of Ja where he looked at, who was it? Was it Fish or was it another reporter? And he said, I saw some guy said on Twitter that I didn't have the fire in my eyes.
Right.
That's the Ja that I think
that was like his rookie season.
Yeah, that was his rookie season.
Yeah.
That's the Ja that people fell in love with. I hope that Ja sticks around, because it is definitely a joy to watch. Anything else to get to before I quiz you on the
we should just go back over the Ja
the injury
stuff.
Yes, of course.
Taylor Jenkins spoke to that today at practice as we record.
Yeah, mild ankle sprain. He had an MRI today. We're recording on Wednesday. And they're going to be cautious with him in the preseason. And he alluded to like maybe he won't play again in the preseason, but he'll be ready for the start of the regular season.
The implication was that he will play opening night. He didn't say he won't play again in the preseason, but that was the implication of it.
He was alluding to that.
I'm not expecting to see Ja or Jaren in preseason. I'm expecting to see Ja opening night, and I would say I'm hopeful to see Jaren opening night. That's sort of where I am with it.
I think I'm there too. Until we have a official news release that says Jaren will be reevaluated on this day, I don't think we can say with 100%.
I don't think we ever had a release to begin with on Jaren, did we?
Never had a release.
They said they were going to put out a release, and they never did. It was all just Taylor.
Yep, never got a release. Didn't get a release on the Ja stuff yet. And I mean, who knows? Like, if they're both going to play, then they would never have to put anything out. But if they're not going to, if there's a chance that they're going to miss opening night, they're going to have to put a release out there. So we'll see. No one has come out and openly said, we expect Jaren to be ready for the start of the regular season. No one has said that yet.
But they haven't rolled it out.
That has been said for Ja.
I feel like they're both in that, colloquially speaking, that's sort of that day-to-day situation range. Like, I think it's not a thing where you are definitely out for a certain period of time and you will be reevaluated in. I think it's like, it's up in the air in the sense that, like, you know, they're close enough that I'm not expecting to see any kind of release about this stuff unless it's more than they've let on.
I was working on something else while Taylor was talking today, and you sent me the audio from the interview. I was slightly surprised that nobody asked Taylor about him putting Ja back in the game for the second time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's the kind of thing where that's what you would normally ask game night. Right. Yeah. But then we weren't there game night.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think about it.
Well, in hindsight, probably should have just let him sit that one out.
Right.
But I'm sure Ja wanted to get back in there. So
I bet that was a big part of it. You know, not wanting, I don't think he likes the conversation around injury stuff, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, Ja didn't, clearly.
Right.
Ja, after the game, said, I'm good. It's the preseason. Right. Did not want to talk about the ankle anymore after that. So, sounds like he'll be ready to go for opening night, which means meaningful basketball for the Memphis Grizzlies. It's pretty fun to watch. All right, we are going to talk about the NBA GM survey, but first let's take a break for a message from our sponsor.
Want to make a big impact without getting lost in a big system? Join Youth Villages to be a force for families while becoming part of one. Help make positive changes on a national scale, one community at a time. It takes a family to transform lives. Start with yours. Apply now at youthvillages.org/careers.
All right, Chris, NBA GM survey time. How do we want to do this? I'll let you choose. Do you want me to go straight to the categories in which the Grizzlies are included, or do you want me to just go down the line and you can take a guess if the Grizzlies were included?
So I'd say selectively go down the line. I think there's like 50 questions on there, so we're not going to do them all, but whatever seems interesting to you.
All right, well, let's just start with the easy one. Which team will win the NBA Finals? Who do you think was selected first?
Yeah, let's be clear. I'm guessing the GM's responses. I'm not giving my responses. I'm not ready for that yet.
Right. We're not doing the predictions pod is coming later. Right. It'll come before the season. You are guessing who you think the GM's selected.
Right. So what's the first question?
Which team will win the NBA Finals?
I mean, it's going to be Boston because they're probably the best team on paper. They're the defending champs. I think most people look at it and see that on paper, the Celtics and the Thunder seem like probably the two best teams in the conferences. So I think it's going to be Celtics Thunder on that.
Celtics Thunder, 83% Celtics, 13% Thunder. Nailed it 1 for 1.
That's a big number on the Celtics, 83.
Yeah, third was the Dallas Mavericks, 3%. Okay. That one might be the only one that's a slight surprise, but they did make the finals last year. So okay, I'm going to ask this one a little bit of a different way. Do you think they put Memphis as a playoff team inside the top 6? Do you think Memphis was selected as a playoff team?
Yeah, not top 4, but probably I think the consensus, not everyone agrees with this, but if you're trying to guess a consensus, I think Phoenix, Memphis are like the 5-6 teams in some order.
Nailed it. 2 for 2. Phoenix at number 5, Memphis at number 6. Memphis got 3% of the second place votes, 7% of the third place votes. 10% of GMs put them in 4th place. They are number 6 on the list behind Phoenix. It goes Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Denver, Dallas, Phoenix, Memphis. Behind Memphis, also getting top 4 votes, New Orleans and Golden State. Golden State, kind of surprising to me.
People can't quit Golden State. Yeah.
So that one was interesting. All right, MVP.
So this is interesting because, like, the guys who are the best, the MVP has been on lock for Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, basically for the last half decade, and it's not going to be Embiid because he won't play enough games. And I think the sense will be like it's time for something new that Jokic and Giannis have wanted too much.
One of those 3 players you just named was not put in the top 5. Can you guess who it is?
I mean, it should be Embiid because he's not going to play 65 games.
It is not Embiid.
So it's Giannis then.
It is Giannis.
Okay. I think that's a mistake.
Others receiving votes but did not land in the top 5.
If I'm setting odds, I would set odds higher on Giannis than I would Embiid, easily.
I think I would agree with you there.
Embiid's not playing 65 games. I think Giannis, there's a chance for a big bounce back because that team's not that good, and if he carries them to like a top 3 seed in the East anyway, it is awesome. But I think sort of the next man up in this is Luka and Shea.
You're on the right track.
I'm going to say they're probably going to say Shea because if the consensus is Oklahoma City's going to finish first, it'll be like best player, best team kind of thing. I don't think that's what my pick would be when I get that. I don't think I will be predicting Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to win MVP, but I bet the GMs do.
Check. 3 for 3. He's at 100% still. 40% of GMs. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
I don't love that pick.
High number.
I don't
30% on Luka. I haven't gone through it yet. I think I'm going to end up picking Luka MVP. It's time.
Yeah, he more fits the MVP profile to me.
Yeah. This one's just fun, so I'm going to ask you this, and then I'll start skipping a few. If you were starting a franchise today and you could sign any player in the NBA, who would it be?
Oh, I think the winner for that is going to be Wemby. But I think there should be a real strong case for Luka as the answer to that question. But I think Wemby is going to be the answer.
Wemby's number 1, 4 for 4, 100% still. In a tie for second, Shea and Jokic. Interesting.
The idea of picking Shea over Luka to that question is weird to me.
Shea's getting a lot of love.
Luka is younger. Luka is bigger. Luka is more of a pure, like, one-man offense by himself. I don't understand that.
Last year, the leader in this category, Jokic with 33%. 77% of GMs say Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
If you were starting a franchise today. Okay. Let's go to which player is most likely to have a breakout season in 24-25. There is a Memphis Grizzly inside of the top 5.
I don't know that I have a good instinct on that. I mean,
this one is tough.
Wemby's already broke it out, right?
Probably going to be the first one.
We're there. I think, this, I got to get my head back to, I'm trying to predict what they say, not what I would say. What are they going to say to that? I don't even know. Are they going to say like Chet Holmgren? Oh, Jalen Williams, maybe? One of those OKC guys. What's
your pick?
Jalen Williams, because he's year
5 for 5. I can't beat this guy. This guy cannot be stumped. Cannot be stumped. I promise you, I believe Chris. He did not look at these lists. He is 5 for 5.
I think they're OKC pilled. That's what I'm getting out of this. It's like OKC everything.
There's a Grizzly in the top 3. Who do you think it is?
I mean, it's not going to be Edey because he's a rookie, so you can't have a breakout as a rookie. I mean, are they saying Ja because it's like a comeback thing?
Ja.
Okay, sure.
I don't understand that.
It doesn't make sense. He'd be a comeback player.
And he's already won most improved player.
Right.
How are you going to be a breakout player?
They used to have a comeback player of the year award and they got rid of it. Like, he would be set up for that, but they don't have that anymore.
Yeah, they have that in the NFL, and it always ends up like going to the complete wrong guy.
Right.
All right, Chris. Next on the list, who is the best point guard in the NBA? Do you think Ja made the top 4?
No, I don't think Ja made the top 4 because there's so many really good point guards right now. And I think the out of sight, out of mind thing. Because Jalen Brunson just had this incredible breakthrough, and Tyrese Halliburton made All NBA, and like all of this. You get a little bit into positional questions, like what are you calling somebody? Are you calling Luka point guard? Are you calling him a small forward? I'm going to say because they're OKC build, I'm going to say they went SGA.
They went with Luka. It doesn't make any sense based on
right.
all the other selections, but it was Luka 37%, Shea with 30%. Steph Curry, third, 23%. Then Jalen Brunson. I made this point earlier, but I know Brunson had a really good season last year, but Ja's best season in 21-22 is very similar to what Brunson did last year.
Right.
And I think if Ja wanted to feel snubbed on this list, at least that he's not 4, I think you could make the argument. I'm not saying that this is a bad list. Not saying that. But if he wanted to use this as motivation.
Brunson and Halliburton?
Curry.
Okay, yeah, Curry. I forgot about Curry.
Steph Curry.
Right.
You can't really argue Steph Curry. So, yeah, Ja did not make the top 4. They didn't have a number 5 on this list for whatever reason. I don't know why. Some have 4, some have 5. But Ja, not on the list.
Well, I think you only get 1 vote, so it made them be only 4 people got votes. There's 30 GMs, they'll only have 1 vote.
Could be. Not all of these add up to 100%, though. There's like others receiving in a lot of these categories. But I guess no one else received any votes because there's nobody else on the list. We'll skip shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center, because we already, know that none of the Grizzlies are going to be on those lists. Which team do you think made the best overall moves this offseason? What do you think the GM said?
It's OKC everything. It's going to be OKC again with Hartenstein and Alex
6
Caruso.
for 6.
But Philly should be on there with the Ball George, I would assume.
He was the number 1 biggest impact acquisition. He got 60% of the GM votes. Which team do you think will be most improved in 2024-25? What do you think the GM said?
I mean, well, that's definitely got to be. The Grizzlies are the answer to that question. Like, it's too easy. It's almost like an artificial. It's like the Grizzlies, obviously, and then it's interesting to think of who else it should be. Just because if they're reasonably healthy, they're going to be the most improved team.
Grizzlies with 67%. Chris is just rolling through
Did
this
the Pistons
list.
get any votes?
They were in the others receiving votes
I'm
category.
playing with the prediction that the Pistons double their win total, which would mean going from 14 to 28.
So you have been working on your predictions pod stuff.
Well, I've been working on my predictions column a little bit. I've been taking some notes around the league.
Do you have any guess at who was second behind Memphis?
It's going to be the Spurs because of the Wemby thing. I think people are too high on the Spurs this season.
This guy, I cannot get him. He just continues to keep going. I mean, this one's obvious. You're going to get this one, but I'll give you a freebie. What was the most surprising move of the offseason? Think trades or acquisitions.
I mean, maybe it's just recency bias, but it's got to be the Knicks Towns trade, right? I mean, no one's that was out of the blue on the eve of training camp, right?
All right, moving on. Can I get you on any of these?
You got me on the point guard because I said SGA. It was Luka.
Yeah, but that's different. That didn't include a Grizzly. Well, all right, fine.
Yeah,
I've lost track now.
So I did get tripped up on one. That may be the only one.
You're like 8 for 9, I think, around that mark. Who will win the Rookie of the Year award?
So I think Edie has had the best odds. I think Reed Shepherd is someone who's like second on the most of the odds I've seen. I'm not confident about it, but I'll say Edie. I say they say Edie.
Reed Shepherd, 50%. Finally got you stumped.
Is Edie second?
Edie is second at 30%. If we want to talk about this for just a minute while we're going down the list, Edie is second on the list in terms of who will win Rookie of the Year.
Right.
He is not on the list at all in terms of which rookie will be the best player in 5 years.
I think that's fine because you only get to vote for one guy. And I think there's very little chance Edie is the best rookie out of this class in 5 years. I think there's a good chance he's the third best rookie or the fourth best rookie or something like higher than ninth where he got picked. So that's not an insult to say you're not going to be the best rookie. But I think there is almost certainly going to be someone in this draft who pops in a way that Edie's not going to pop. There may be more than one, but if you gave me Edie versus the field, it's definitely the field on this.
Do you have any thoughts on who they would have voted? Best player in 5 years?
It's probably not Ricochet, even though he was the number one pick. The guy who seems like the most classic version of that is Sarr.
Sarr is in the top 4. He is not number one.
Okay. I mean, it seems like weird because of his athletic profile, but Shepard's a guy that people – these are GMs. So a lot of like the wonkier basketball people are super high on Shepard. So it's probably Reed Shepherd.
Yeah, including us. We like Reed Shepherd a lot. So Reed Shepherd is number one on the list, 43%. Number 2 on the list, another guy you really liked in the draft, Stephon Castle.
Getting back to the Rookie of the Year thing, did you see that like Ricochet was really good in like the first preseason game for Atlanta? I'd been saying that like Edie's going to be maybe the only rookie who starts. Maybe Ricochet's going to start for Atlanta. Maybe they just say, okay, we're done with the DeAndre Hunter thing and we like start him. They probably should. And I don't know. Maybe the number one pick could be a sleeper for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy to think about it. I don't know. I feel like you also got to look to teams where these players are going to have a ton of opportunity.
Right.
Like Atlanta at least still has Trae Young there. So,
but they got rid of Murray, and there's only so much. Like someone else has to handle the ball and take shots for that team other than Trae Young, and so they lost a lot of usage in getting rid of DeJounte Murray.
Well, yes, that is true, but I think there will be like Bazelis. Is that how you say it? Chicago.
For Chicago, yeah.
Like, he's going to get a ton of run, right? Like he'll have every opportunity to post good numbers. Edie's going to have a lot of opportunity to post good numbers. It'll be interesting.
If Castle's good, at some point he's going to be playing a lot with the Spurs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, moving on. There was Edie was in the others receiving votes category in terms of biggest draft steal based on where they were selected. So I found that to be kind of interesting, considering he went higher than most people thought that he was going to go.
Yeah.
But he did make the list.
On draft night, it seems like Dalton Connect was the guy people thought went too low. I haven't detected a lot of enthusiasm about Dalton Connect since draft night. Have you? I haven't.
No, I haven't either. I would venture to guess there's no way you could guess who was number one on who was the biggest draft steal. Actually, there's like a 5-way tie. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-way tie for first. So
is it Klingon?
Klingon's not on the list. It's
okay.
Bub Carrington, Devin Carter, Johnny Furphy, Dalton Connect, Terrence Shannon Jr., and Nikola Topic.
All right, whatever.
Let's see. We're moving on to defensive categories now. Do you have a guess at who they voted as the best defensive player in the NBA?
I don't know if this is the right answer yet, but they're going to say Wemby. Wemby and OKC. That's what the season's about, apparently.
Yep. Wembanyama, number 1. Tied for second, Bam Adebayo, Rudy Gobert, Drew Holiday. Marcus Smart was in other receiving votes. Best defender in the NBA.
He's not the best defender on his own team. That's Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah. Marcus Smart literally gets a couple votes, or at least one vote for best defender in the NBA. So clearly somebody's still got a lot of belief in Marcus Smart. Maybe that vote was
Brad Stevens threw him a vote.
Yeah, could have been. By the way, do you think the GMs actually fill these out, or do you think this is like lower?
I think half of them handed off to someone else in the office. Yeah,
that's what I would guess.
Yeah,
what GM has time?
I mean, it's 50. It's a lot of questions there.
It's a lot of questions. Okay. Best perimeter defender in the NBA. Marcus Smart was among people.
That's a good question.
Votes.
There's not an obvious answer to that question. There's like half a dozen.
I think you can get this one right. I think number 2 is kind of surprising. I think you can get this one right. You could probably land on 2 of these top 4.
If you specified to me, like Marcus Smart did a few years ago, a perimeter player is going to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's risky because he doesn't, because of injuries, but he tends to miss games. I would probably guess OG Anunoby would probably be my guess there.
No. Do you want a hint?
Is it Drew Holiday?
It is Drew Holiday. You don't need a hint.
I predicted Drew Holiday to win Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago, and he didn't do it. I feel like he's great as he is. He's turned the corner a little bit, from his peak years.
Yeah. No, I find this number 2 to be actually the most interesting, and I don't know.
Is it Caruso?
It's Caruso. I mean, who's a good perimeter defender, but the names behind them, I think, are better defenders. Herb Jones and Lou Dort. Like, those guys I would take probably over Caruso. I understand that he's a meaningful role player, but I don't know. I don't know. I would probably reorder that list if the GMs didn't vote these in order. They just voted for who they thought was the best.
I think if he
surprised Caruso's getting 20% as the best perimeter defender from GM.
Well, here's a bonus prediction for me. If he hits the 65 game mark, which you have to hit for these awards, I think OG Anunoby will get the most Defensive Player of the Year votes among perimeter players. I don't think he'll win it because it'll be a center, but that would be my guess. 2
other guys who I also think are. Like, I definitely think Jaden McDaniels is a better perimeter defender than Alex Caruso.
Well, he's different. He's bigger, more versatile.
Yes. Yeah. And then the other one on the list was Derek White, in addition to Marcus Smart. Right. Best interior defender in the NBA. Last year, Jaren Jackson Jr. received 30% of the vote.
And Jaren got no votes this year because it's out of sight, out of mind, I would guess. They're going to say Wemby again, which might end up being true. I think Rudy Gobert still the best rim protector and Bam Adebayo the most versatile, and I would favor those 2 guys still, but they're probably going to say Wemby.
It is Wemby, and Jaren was in the others receiving votes category. Along with Giannis, it was Victor Wembanyama, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo.
All right.
We'll see. With Jaren roaming the paint again, potentially with Edey there, I think that there's potential that he creeps back up in the consideration among the best interior defenders in the league.
He needs to. I mean, the consideration itself will have no impact on the Grizzlies' fortunes, but Jaren needs to be at that level as a defensive force, I think, for the Grizzlies to get where they want to get. Yeah.
All right. I'm skipping the rest of the defense and I'm going to coaching. We'll wrap up with these last couple. Who do you think they voted as the best coach in the NBA?
Oh, I think the consensus on that has shifted. It's definitely not Pop anymore. A few years ago, it would have been Pop. I think the consensus has shifted pretty strongly to Spoelstra on that.
It is Spoelstra as number 1. Mark Daigneault, number 2. Oklahoma City just getting all the love, man. Yeah. All the love. Steve Kerr, number 3. Let's see. Which coach makes the best in-game adjustments? Do you think Taylor Jenkins made this list? In any coaching category.
It's hard to project on the coaching side. Spoelstra was an easy pick for like best coach or whatever, I think, because I think that's sort of the league consensus.
In any category.
Does he pop up on any coaching category? Yeah, he pops up somewhere. I mean, he was second coach of the year a few years ago, so I think his name pops up somewhere.
He pops up right here.
Okay.
Best coaching adjustments. He's number 4, but I'll let you guess number 1. I think you're going to get it. I know you like this coach.
Okay, you're sort of helping me out a little bit. It's probably Tyronn Lue then.
Yes.
I think Rick Carlisle is someone I would think of too.
Rick Carlisle was tied for 4th with Taylor Jenkins and Nick Nurse.
Oh, Nick Nurse. That's a good answer.
Yes. Okay. I think that we can wrap it up there. I don't really have – oh, wait. There's a couple more miscellaneous that we can do here.
Okay.
Some of which include the Grizzlies. Fastest player with the ball.
Again, it's going to be out of sight, out of mind. So they're not going to say Ja. The other guy who people talk about on that is De'Aaron Fox. So I'm going to say they say De'Aaron Fox.
De'Aaron Fox was number 1. Ja Morant number 2 with 38% of the vote. So probably higher percentage given that he didn't play last year than you may have expected. Which player is the most athletic?
Oh, that's a good question because your mind immediately thinks of stars, right? So Ja, Anthony Edwards, and then there's different kinds of athleticism. I mean, Wemby might be the most athletic in his own way. If you really talk about raw athleticism, it's probably some guy's not a star. It's like, the Thompson twins and that kind of thing. I'm going to say –
But you're thinking –
I'm going to say Anthony Edwards is who they say.
Anthony Edwards, number 1, 45%. Last year, Ja was number 1 at 34%. Ja Morant is on the list, tied for 4th at 7%. So there you have it. That's all the lists that include the Grizzlies plus some others. So if you want to recap, you can go read our story over at the Daily Memphian, where I recapped all of the GM survey for you in a more digestible way than normal. I think that's going to do it for us this week. Chris, do you want to tell anybody what you got going on?
I've been doing my little deep dive roster columns starting last week. So the first one I did was on Santi Aldama and Brandon Clark, paired them together. And then the second one I did was on Ja Morant, Desmond Bane. Maybe you've heard of them together. And then the third one, which I did yesterday, I think, this week, was on Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard. And then I got into Scottie Pippen, Jake LaRavia in that one. And I'm planning 2 more of these. One on Jared I've been working on today. And then probably next week I'll do something on Zach Edey. And then after that, I may or may not write something about like the coaching and the offense and all of this, which I've been leaving alone. But once we get a few more games, I may or may not write about that in the preseason. But I'll definitely do my, go through all 30 teams with like 2 or 3 sentences and predictions on that, probably late next week.
Yeah, we will get to our predictions pod eventually. I'm sure it will be the week before the regular season starts. I feel like that's typically what we've done, right, on the predictions
I believe
pod.
That would be next week.
Oh, man, I better start getting ready.
Right.
Because I'm headed off to Utah for that first game. Going to be interesting. I think we'll see right out the gate just how ready some of these guys are, just how ready the offense is. If the name of the game is speed, feels like the for the Grizzlies, the other name of the game is progress. Like they have got to come up to speed quickly, just to throw another speed in there. Like I think that's going to be pretty important because this team can't really afford to start super slow, or you would think not, based on the way that last season went. So it'll be fascinating. It's going to be a fun couple weeks. Chris, I always try to ask you something non-basketball related. Let's get out of here on this. Have you been watching any shows recently?
I finished Industry. And my wife and I had started watching the current season. Is it season 3?
And what is this about?
Of Slow Horses.
Oh, okay.
But it's on Apple. And since I've been in Memphis, I have not been able to get my Apple thing working on my laptop. So I'm going to have to wait till I get back to Minnesota. I'm going to finish up Slow Horses. I'm a big fan of Slow Horses, which is a British sort of spy series on Apple TV. It's based on a book series, which I've also read, but it's got a Mick Herron. Way into that. Gary Oldman plays like this crusty old spy. Really good, entertaining, sort of procedural like kind of stuff. Highly recommend Slow Horses.
Like that. So you are an Apple TV guy because I just
we are only that because of Slow Horses. Honestly, I think my wife watched Ted Lasso, which I didn't.
Severance will be back soon, though.
Severance will be back
I never
soon.
watched Severance. I should do that. It's supposed to be good.
Our producer Natalie says, I just finished watching Hijack. Okay. Are you aware of that? That's another Apple TV. It's about plane that gets hijacked.
Yeah, I've not seen that, but yes.
It's like hour by hour. I think there's like 7 episodes, and the flight is 6 or 7 hours long, and it's like hour by hour of this plane being hijacked in Idris Elba.
Yes,
Idris
this
Elba.
is right. Okay.
Am I pronouncing that?
Yes.
Which way is correct?
Yeah,
Idris,
you're
Idris
right.
Elba?
Idris. Yeah.
I'm not a movie guy, so I don't know like any actors, but I recognized him.
Have you seen The Wire?
He's like the main guy. No,
that was his real breakout.
I'm dying to watch
he was Stringer Bell in The Wire.
You know, the Married Life. People ask me how Married Life is going. The truth about Married Life is sometimes it's hard.
Sometimes you got to sit on the couch and watch the Great British Baking Show. That's what Married Life is like.
We've been watching.
It's hard. Like it was breaking.
We've been watching Love Is Blind. That's been something.
I have long time on the couch watching Sex and the City.
There you go.
I have been there, my friend.
So,
yes.
But I have a hard time getting. Sometimes my wife is more picky on shows than I am. I'm picky too, but like we very rarely can come to like a strong agreement. Usually it's one or the other given a little rope on a show. So if you have any show suggestions that like we both might like, she's like less of like the intense type, but she did enjoy Hijack. So that was cool. But yeah, I've been watching a couple shows in between Grizzlies stuff.
Have you watched Hacks?
No.
She might be into Hacks. Hacks is a good like watch together a couple of things. It's an HBO show. It's the older comedian and the young comedy writer. It's 2 women. It's a comedy.
Okay.
Maybe give that a shot.
Maybe. We might be able to give that a shot. I'm going to watch The Penguin on HBO.
My wife and son have been watching The Penguin.
I'm going to watch that for sure. And then in addition to Love Is Blind, which is the crappy kind of reality TV, you know, I've grown to not hate it entirely.
Right.
I will say. I kind of like something brainless every once in a while. And Jaron Jackson and we both share an appreciation for some brainless TV. So I've been able to connect with him a little bit. But
Jaron
nice.
has regressed on his TV because his rookie year, his very first media thing, he was going on and on about watching Ozark. He's gone from Ozark to Love Is Blind.
He loves Love Island. That's the one he loves.
Okay. Love Island. That's it. That's right.
Yeah. And there's others too, but I can't even remember them. He watches them all. That guy watches a lot of TV. Well, anyway, that'll do it for us this week. That's enough crappy TV talk. And we will be back next week, I guess, with our predictions pod, Chris.
All right.
And we'll be ready to go, ready to ramp up towards a new season. You be safe getting back to Minnesota. But Chris will be back soon, and the podcast will continue virtually. So make sure you're tuning in next week to listen to our predictions pod and figure out where Chris and I have the Grizzlies in the playoff race. Until next time, for Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.